good morning, everyone, and whatever time is in different parts of the world. Welcome to the first ever CECRI webinar. It's really amazing to see for the first time around so many people joining in. Thank you. And we are recording this as well, and it'll be in the Facebook group as well as in our website soon. You'll hear the details later. So it has been 28 batches come this May, June, right? So 28 batches, nearly 1,000 graduates. We have delivered across all the fields, be it industry, academia, information technology, finance. But there's one missing piece. We don't have an alumni association. Even though we have 1,000 people, we don't have an alumni association. So Joshi, Sharif, and team, they've been doing a lot of work with the career workshop and other things, and said, okay, it's time to create an alumni association. So I called Joshi, and then he quickly found a team that could volunteer. Ashish, Ashok, Ayyappan, Ganesh, Praveen, Shaktivel, Ramesh, Sharif, Rajan, Dindi, Sokalingam from Canada, Mohan, I'm sure Rukesh, I'm sure I'm missing, but all of them joined hands, and here we are with the first webinar. So with that, I'll hand over to Joshi. Joshi, a few words, please, and then we'll get on to the webinar.
Thank you, Chok. First of all, whether everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chok, for the invitation and being a spark and reason for the gathering today. So first off on the Alumni Planning Committee, currently we are a team of 18 people with expertise in different ranges to support us, like IT, development and finance aspects, and many. So first of all, our big leap and the big step would be to develop our alumni website with broader functionality, and in parallel, keeping the information secure and private. So we have dedicated support personnel to assist in this, and Mohammed and Sharif and Mohan will be going in further depth on this matter. If things go as planned during this outbreak, we also are planning to conduct the Career Excellence Program for the batch 2021, Secretary. Earlier, we have conducted for batch 2019 and then 2020, so we are on track with this program. We'll be collaborating with CFE on various roles to assist with students, placement recruitment, and other career support for the students graduating. So, and then and funds, the other aspect is funds, utilization and spending and collection. So on speaking of transparency in fund collection, in regards to this, we'll be registering a non-profit alumni bank account, both in US and India, to facilitate various operations across the global. I'm not going into much detail on this, but we have plans to register a non-profit account, both in US and India. Also, we are planning to introduce, not planning, we are introducing the lifetime membership plan for a nominal fee, and we'll be starting to enroll the alumni soon. And that being said, we are ready to move on to the next part of the alumni, the conference. So the fireside chat with Dindi and Chok. So please go ahead, and then we all are ready.
Great. Thank you, Joshi. So logistics, as you come up with questions, please keep sending through chat window through a text message. Ashish will be moderating and then posing the questions towards the end. So Ashok is making sure that we are all muted so that we can listen the conversation with Dindi. So with that, let me get started. Dindi, fondly called as Dindi, Venkat Raghavan Srinivasan, graduated from CECRI in 1996. He wore many hats. The recent hat he's wearing is a data science professional at The Federal, which is part of Pudhiya Thalaimurai. So with that, Dindi, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. My first reaction when Chokka said this, was என்ன வச்சு காமெடி கேம்லி ஒன்றும் பண்ணலையே அப்படின்னு. So that was the first reaction. But yeah, but I must, yeah, I do data science role and have been following COVID closely. But there are other people from our Alma who have done some incredible work, especially when it related to things like data science and during this pandemic. We had a virus, Srinivasan Ramani from Batches Lower, who has done an incredible job at the Hindu. The toughest thing in India is trying to get hold of good quality data so that only then people like me can make sense. That was an amazing stuff done. And the other was your batch, Chokka. Sundar being Sundar, nobody quietly has done, he has done an incredibly, I don't know whether Sundar has logged in, but
Yes.
somebody must pass on the
He's here.
message that, yeah, so he had done an amazing, so he maintains the COVID-19 medical inventory site, right? In which that is something completely amazing. He has quietly done the job, and I am honestly, thank you very much. This is a great honor. In the OBI அடிக்க ஒரு chance கொடுத்திருக்கீங்க. But still, glad to. So I'm seeing this purely. I'm not a healthcare professional, obviously. I've been doing data most of my career, and this was just an opportunity which I got about a year and a half back, where now media, there's been what you call as trust deficit with the media. It could be both with what irrespective of what political spectrum you fall on, and there's now a need for tools like using data in order to establish and cover this trust deficit. So that's how I got sold into this, if I could say. It's been an incredible experience so far. Yeah, glad to take on. I would share whatever I know. If I am incorrect or something like that, please feel free to cut me there right away. And glad to take anything. A lot of things that I would be, which I made notes of and I'll be discussing, are things that I hope to be very wrong about and not exactly right. Right? So glad. Please go ahead.
Okay,
Oka.
Bindi, yeah, I'll keep cutting you off based on the timing as well. So,
Yeah, sure.
okay, great. So, as of 3:30 p.m. Pacific time on May 15th, we had over 4.6 million cases and 300,000 deaths due to COVID. It's unfortunate. From your vantage point of view, as you're staring at this data, where do you think we are headed?
I don't know how many batches had this. In our 7th semester, we had probably one of the few courses which someone like me loved it, which was a course on mathematical modeling. It was taken by Basha for us, modeling and simulation. At that point of time, it was a course that it did just to pass exams. But then later on, you realize that a course like that is very important when it comes to be it using it in engineering or financial models or economics, or even in this case, healthcare. But the golden rule in engineering is all models are wrong, but some models can be useful, right? So there are some of these models which do predict, right? For example, the EIU says 50% of the global population is going to get infected by this virus. Now, do not scare us as much, because the fact is that what people are observing is 80 to 85% of these cases have been, just like a normal yearly cold cough kind of stuff. But there have been cases where it has been pretty serious. It has been pretty, the fatality rates also have been high. But the problem, I would like to come to India point of view, right? So in India, we saw that way back in March, right? This whole shutdown did happen, right? I think it was shutdown personally was something which we needed at that point of time, but that was more like a speed breaker. We needed that so that we could ramp up things like testing or hospital beds, ventilators, and things like that. right? You must remember that a country like India, and again, I would refer, please go and check Sundar's COVID-19 medical inventory site, right? So that, right, a country like India only has 0.55 doctors for 1,000 population. We have about 7.5 lakh public beds. Private beds are estimated to be again about 11 lakhs. So looking at total of 20 lakhs. The total number of ICU beds is far less. We have about, we had before the COVID, we had 30,000 ventilators in India, right? So this whole idea of flattening the curve that they were talking about, and many of them had this mistaken notion that if you're going to shut down, the virus is just going to go away. That is not the case. The virus is here. It is here. It is going to be around for some time till we this whole herd immunity, which you're going to get either by infecting people or through a vaccine is going to be there, right? So this particular initial period you must have used to essentially ramp up and buy time, if I have to use the word, buy time to be prepared. And once we open up, we'll have to protect our vulnerable, our senior citizens, especially, right? Because data has shown that they are the people who are maximum affected. Although this thing has been a learning every day. So yesterday, for example, the data of Chennai showed much younger people, falling for mortality for the particular virus. So we don't know. Things are still bleak. But one thing which I think definitely we can be sure about is this thing can be won through what? Through personal responsibility, community cooperation, caring for each other at this point of time, and hopefully state alacrity where the state also comes with that. So I'd like to reiterate the point, and this is a great initiative because we are all getting together over here, right? We will have to support each other through this crisis. This is not going to just like that go away. There was a PIB epic curve which said that from 17th of May the number of cases would be 0. It's not going to happen that way, at least from way in which you look at the data. So I like to reiterate, the whole thing again boils down to personal responsibility, setting aside differences and working together as a community. We should be able to
Okay.
beat the monster.
So Dindi, you wrote an excellent article in the Federal about the need for testing and how do we interweave that with economic recovery and creating a health delivery pipeline. Briefly, can you go? We have a lot of questions here based on from the team.
So the point I was essentially making is what is happening, especially in this, we are seeing a lot of asymptomatic cases. That is, people who don't show cough or any other typical symptoms, but these are the people who go about infecting. In the case of Tamil Nadu, data showed almost 90% to 95% in a particular cluster were asymptomatic, right? So I'm going to the extent of saying that the cure is testing. So the way in which you work is you can't shut down everybody, right? Right now, what are we doing? We're shutting down everybody and asking everybody to stay at home. And we're just going to keep infecting each other, right? What I'm saying about testing now, I'd like to exaggerate to make a point. In the 90s, if you remember, Chokka, we used to have these PCO booths in which we used to go and they used to stop clock and we used to make STD calls, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying literally we need to look at something like that, right? For testing, right? And in case of testing also, what initially we assumed was the initial thing was, is testing is not too expensive for a country like India, right? That was the point that was being made. Now, they use the US number of $117 and says, is it expensive? But you must remember that bulk of that $117 in the US were things like the BSL standards, which are required for their testing labs. Labor was very expensive there too, right? That's not the case in India, right? We have enough and more PCR machines. There are people actually out of jobs or who are looking for jobs, and this is lab technician kind of work. It's not rocket science. They're typically going to take a swab. They need to be trained, of course, in that. And so the point I was trying to make is if you can ramp up this whole testing, right? If you look at the data, a country like US is testing about 25,000 per million. Germany 35,000 per million, 30,000. Of course, I do understand these all developed countries, and they have significantly more resource. But country like India, we're just testing about 1,000 per million, right? And so what happens is when we're going to open out, we're going to go out again. We're going to keep infecting, and this is, this is going to keep on happening till vaccine is found. So I would think the cure is you go ahead, test people, right? Of course there are these things like false positives they talk about, right? So you test, as the WHO guy says, test. So my point is, you test early, test late, test repeatedly, right? So yes, if there's a false positive, fine. Again, you will be able to catch the guy who's spreading the infection 1 week or 2 weeks down the line with a second test, right? So the point I'm trying to make is we will need to keep repeating this testing over a period of next 1 year. People go on with their life. You test, you are fine. You go ahead and you work. You test, you are positive. You go take. Anyway, there's no treatment. You just got to be quarantined, for your mandatory 2 weeks or whatever. In Tamil Nadu, they're following a double incubation, so you get quarantined for 28 days, right? There were people in my class who was had to go through a compulsory quarantine. My batch, he spent 4 weeks under quarantine. He's now, of course, fine, right? But that's the only thing left. So you test, so people continue with work, especially people in the front line, police officers, people working in Arvin booth, working in healthcare, keep testing all of them. People who want to go back to their office, you test them, right? They are negative, they go on with the work. Of course, the argument is made. Yeah, that's the point I was trying to make. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dindi. If you're just joining us or if you joined late, we are in conversation with Dindi, alias Venkat, batch of 1996, the impact of COVID-19 and where do we go from here. So I want to go next to defining, as we look forward, the way we define work is going to be very different. The way we think about supply chain resiliency, manufacturing, it's all going to go local. So with this, are there businesses that are going to be green, that are going to be red? Some, like for example, the hospitality industry is going to be hit majorly. So can you comment on it? And somebody commented recently, just now, about electrochemists playing a role in the testing as well. So can you comment on, first, which businesses can be good, and also the electrochemists and the professionals here can play a role in shaping that economic recovery?
I don't think it's absolutely, on the latter part, I think I should avoid electrochemistry. So, but in any case, so like how the containment zones in India have been divided into red, orange, and green. And this is again another idea given by another secretary, which we built on, is that similarly businesses could be classified under red zone businesses, orange zone businesses, and green zone businesses. So you're looking at industries which we saw during the shutdown: travel, tourism, MICE, which is meeting incentives, conferences, exhibitions, right? We did see manufacturing, construction, all these which were depend on labor, which are shut down, all have been badly hit, right? Now going forward over the year, probably things like manufacturing, and we saw print media get badly hit. We saw newspapers like the big newspapers which couldn't deliver their for the first time. These are people who during floods and earthquakes we got our paper, but during COVID we could not. And in turn, the newspaper themselves also, who were essentially advertisement driven, right? A particular newspaper, virus is not there. Virus would tell you that the month of April and May is when a lot of these people advertisement happen. All your Akshay Triti, Lalita jewelry advertisement, your Ratna stores, Ratna fans, air condition advertisement, and all that. And suddenly you do not have the source of revenue. So they're seeing newspapers being hit. You're seeing people being laid off, furlough, which is happening, and things like that. Of course, even in tourism, travel, the darlings of the investors like Make My Trip, Clear Trip, and all this, have been badly hit. Again, the 95 batch, Karthik, I think you should also get him to talk on that. He runs an online travel business too, right? So ticketing, right? So these are people, these are businesses which got hit. So you classify them as red. Then you look at these green businesses. Then we'll come to orange. Green business, one which are done very well, right? So you have all these online education, online content, which was essentially on subscription-driven model. Because if it was ad-driven, again, you're getting hit because nobody's coming forward to advertise. So content which ran on subscription businesses, online gaming. Online gaming started doing very well, especially one on subscription. In Indian context, on March 25th, the ICMR got a new regulation which said that telemedicine can be done. So think about it. We did not officially have telemedicine in India through a government regulation before March 25th, right? And they have now, all of a sudden in last 1 month, you have seen explosion. I know personally of my classmates' dad who have had consultation through, a similar app like this, right? Another thing was pharmacy, right? So online pharmacy was considered illegal in India on till April 9, 2020. On April 10, 2020, the government not only legalizes it, but makes online medical delivery a essential service, right? Which means that even in a red zone area, they could operate and things like that. So that's when you look at the green zone businesses. Now, the orange zone businesses, funny examples, right? So when we look during demonetization in India, winners like UPI and Paytm happened, right? So ideally, we should have had a similar case now, and we should have had winners like online grocery, like Big Basket or Amazon, Flipkart, and things like that. Surprisingly, they have not done well. So the Big Basket CEO actually went on Twitter to apologize. So here was a case where he got 6x more business. As an entrepreneur, that's your dream, right? Till yesterday, it was X. Suddenly, today, we're running 6x order. But he could not fulfill it because he did not have his supply chain was not ready for it. And his staff was operating with 20% of his staff, remaining staff went away. So he was a case where similarly, Amazon worldwide, America, they've done extremely well. But in India, it just didn't work. The supply chain did not work. There were classification of only essential services that could be done here, right? So businesses like that. Similarly, Swiggy, right? Swiggy, which is online food delivery. Then later on, of course, they allowed with a certain time restriction. But these were the guys, online Swiggy, Zomato. They have caught on well, right? And they managed to scale. They've also started what is known as horizontalizing business. So they were only in food delivery. They are now also doing things like grocery. They're distributing meat, and things like that, and growing on. And the big thing, of course, is this whole alcohol going online, which they're talking about. Governments have no money. We cannot take moralistic positions on this, right? So alcohol is a prime source of income for the government, especially in the case of Tamil Nadu. We have been working on that model, right? But TASMAC closing hurt revenues. So that's it. So you're seeing again opportunity with all this online alcohol and things like that. So that would be, so these are orange zone businesses that can scale, but needs regulatory or supply chain inputs or better stuff to work. And this is my view, opposite point of view or any other point of view on this.
So on the economic side, slowdown side, right? There is economic slowdown due to the stoppage of all the activities. That's one. There is a secondary economic slowdown that's coming in through people saving, right? When you're looking at it individually, if you just had been through a furlough, you're naturally not going to spend the moment the stores open. So there's going to be a savings tendency, which will again impact the economic output of the countries in general. So this is the time when the governments have to spend a lot more. But we don't see that happening, especially in countries like India. There's still austerity measures being taken, and they try to be within the credit limits. So can you comment on that? And maybe you can combine your conversation with Mohan Kumaramangalam on this aspect as well. Maybe combine those two and then address that.
So the Prime Minister did announce 20 lakh crore, and I hope that happens. There might be different political views right now, and where individually where we stand politically. But one thing is clear is we can't be failing at this moment, because if the government fails, the state fails, we all fail together, right? So we should be, as far as possible, accept and work with that. Right now, as far as the economy is concerned, what data says is, in a country like India, we're losing about $6 to $7 billion a day from what they call as the daily loss method in the GDP for every day of shutdown. Now, that's a huge amount of money from India point of view, right? But the real problem is, and this is a worrying problem, is this consumption. The economy in India has been consumption driven, right? So people consume, people buy stuff, and that's how the economy goes. But when you look at data, you see that there's been a 73% drop in consumption. And when I'm saying drop in consumption, I'm not talking about people not consuming Suzuki cars and stuff like that. They're not consuming pulses, they're not consuming oil, they're not consuming your day-to-day goods, and that's a worrying sign, right? So, as you rightly said, the right thing to do right now would be put money into people's hands, people's pocket, right? And whether you like it or not, in America, that's what President Trump has done. He went. So you need to boost consumption. You need to just put money into people's hands, right? So to give you an example, day for yesterday, there was an MSME announcement where they said 3 lakh crore would be given, right? So it still again ended up becoming a big bureaucratic labyrinth where they say we'll give the money to bank, we will give this, you go and take your facility and things like that. But when you look at the small business examples in countries outside, including countries like, I know it's again unfair comparison, US or Germany, but these are the template. So 3 lakh crore was given, divided by 45 lakh MSMEs in India, which means you're looking at some 6,66,000 per MSME, right? So it's not that all MSME might require that. Some might have wealth, some might have backup. But the fact is that there are MSMEs who literally work on month-to-month working capital management, right? So we must figure out a way, or the government should have figured out a way by which they can give this money directly to these MSMEs, right? They should put the money into that entrepreneur's pocket, or put the money into the business owner's pocket, and see how consumption goes about. Because this is actually a demand side, and the way in which the government has been addressing it so far is with liquidity, which means that pushing money into the market through banks and through other liquidity measure, and these structural reforms, right? To be honest, initially skeptical, but the last 2 days, the finance minister has managed to surprise a lot of us. Yesterday, there were reforms to agriculture, which has not happened in the last 70, 80 years, right? Which was doing away with the Essential Commodities Act. There are many people who do not know till yesterday, the government, that the farmer did not have free choice. He had to go and sell it only at a particular market or a particular APMC. Now that's not the case. He can sell anywhere of his choice, and things like this. I know you might say, this is how does it help the COVID pandemic directly? I do not know, but these are all the reforms which the government is trying, right? They're trying to do. Similarly, today they have coal, which is a government monopoly today. Coal has been privatized, which is actually pretty big.
Yeah, certainly. Crisis is certainly an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves. Yeah, certainly. In the interest of time, I think we will be going back to Q&A from the team who joined here later. So I'll just go with a lightning round right now to lighten it up a little bit. Okay, Dindi, would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
I think animals understand whatever language we speak. So, I would prefer languages.
Okay. Okay. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Definitely 92, 96, no doubt at all. There's zero doubt about that. Yeah.
Okay. Is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
as long I wrong person to ask. Eat anything that does not bite back. So that's my philosophy.
Okay.
So
So with that, let me hand over the floor to Sharif and Mohan.
I just have one point. I think you must. This is a great move that you have done. But I mean, first you started with comedy Pandi with me. But definitely, please do look to get some of our guys who are with the government who are doing incredible job. For example, Ashok, who's with the Indian Foreign Services. Uh, he's done an amazing job. He was supposed to go and join at South Africa as a consul, but he got caught in the pandemic. We have Kumaresh who has joined in. He works with the government. You have Bala Murli who's doing an amazing job at Palakkad. I keep hearing as he's the IAS, he's a collector of Palakkad. He's done. So these are actually people who are in the line of fire and actually doing work in the OBD data pathway. So, I would really, I mean, I think you must consider getting all these people, getting people like Sundar, for example, has done such a lovely modeling. You must make him talk about his.
Yeah, I did ping Sundar. He hasn't replied to me. So now there's more pressure.
Yeah, catch him. It's an amazing model, Chokka. You
Yeah.
must check out the website. I'll probably share it. It's very important because it tells you district wise so much of PPE required, so much of hospital bed required, so much of ventilators required, and things like that. And one aspect which we did miss out, which I need to come back, is this whole decentralization which is required. We seem to be having a top to down method, and I don't think that is working. I think we must treat each community. We should solve this for each of our community or our area or our district, and that's when we try to scale it up. And I think that's what this pandemic has taught us: more caring for immediately people around us, people who work for us, people who with whom we work on a daily basis. It could be a domestic help, it could be somebody who's driving you around, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I
So
think,
that's
yeah,
an important point.
certainly the self-reliance, even at the minutest like village level, has to happen. I think this is going to force us there in a positive way. So with that, Sharif and Mohan, do you want to explain what our website is going to be like? And first of all, the domain name and all that, please go ahead.
Uh, Chok, can you hear me and see the slide?
Yes, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, hi everyone. This is me, Sharif, from 2009 batch, and with me, Mohan, 2007 batch. We have created some initial thoughts about the Sikri website. It's basically dream come true for many alumni, because there's so much we can achieve, help each other, and use all of our power to accomplish some cause. Um, so first, I would like to announce that Dr. Chok has already founded the website sikrialumni.org, sikrialumni.org, and this will be developed by Mr. Rajarajan from 2002 batch and Gaurav Kumar from 2016 batch. Based on the input that we will provide to them, the alumni group will provide to them. Here in this 10 minutes, we want to cover the initial thoughts and ideas that will going forward. So as you can see, I have six sections. The first one is the home page, who does what. So as soon as you open the URL, what a public will see. So basically, they will not be able to see any alumni information here, just like any other alumni website in the world. They will be able to see any public who open this website, be able to see the information about CFE, SICRI, and maybe a link to a SICRI website. Apart from public, we also thought about the current students, the 4-year student who are currently studying. At this moment, they will also be treated as the public because they are not alumni yet, and they will not have access to the alumni information. And the third option is the alumni view. So we will all have a login page, and we will be able to use our username password to log in into. Before that, we all need to complete this mandatory registration by paying the registration fee, which will be discussed. So when you do that, you will have you just need to input your email address and username password, and then when you land up in your profile page where you can add many more information. Depending upon what you want to share, you can add your picture, your mobile number, email ID, the company you have worked with. I would say the company information is more crucial and it will add to the weightage of the website. This is mostly about the homepage. The second one is the database, the individual profile. This is the main database that works behind the website. It keeps all of our information. This is run by the admin who maintain this database. So here the company information is crucial, but it's not mandatory because there might not be people who did not work or is not working currently. But I think the page can be very much utilized for the company and trying to get a contacts. That's why it's important. This website also will be allow the user to create profile based on the payment they make. To simplify the privacy at this moment, we would say just leave the the columns that are empty, which you don't want to share. In future, we are thinking you can have a different privacy setting. What do you want to share? What do you want to keep it private? Those also can be discussed within the group and decide later. Third option is the searchability function. This is the most important function of the website, I would say, because any alumni at any given point of time will be able to search a particular a name, a badge, location, nature of the job, a company, or through email address. And the search engine will provide you a list of matching profiles that you can browse through. I can give you some examples. Like in recent times, you might have come across any junior who asked you for someone's contact information or a particular company's contact where they want to do get a job or trying to do an intern, right? So they're just gonna any junior who are actually alumni, they can just simply log in and try to search, let's say, Shell Bangalore, and get information regarding Shell Bangalore and contact the right person at the right moment, which is going to improve the productivity and use all of our power together to achieve something so quick. That's the search function basically will do, just like any other search function. The fourth section I will be talking about is the forum or the job creation. So the job creation here we are talking about is the particular request. The forum can have multiple tabs with multiple categories. Anyone be able to create a particular job or a request where you can ask. I can give you many examples where you can ask just a PDF version of John B. Goodanov's book, and someone will comment it the link for you. Or you can ask anyone can help me with the data entry job, or anyone can help me with the vibration table manufacturer for my lithium ion project, and the right people will comment you or give you a link or help you with the offer, right? So this will be very important function of the website where it will be interactive and multiple categorized where you can share information. Initially, we are thinking it will be free to use. I mean to say anyone can use it. Later, depending upon the usage, it will go through the moderator just to keep the sanity of the website so that everything is maintained very well. So the job creation forum section is like a timeline where you will see a daily thing, daily request, whatever we do in WhatsApp and Facebook, we can collate all of them here. The fifth section we will be talking about is the fund request. So the idea is that the website will directly handle the payments, either the registration fee or the fundraising for a career counseling or anything else. The website will be able to handle it by using a payment gateway. That was the initial idea. Or you can also use a third-party page like GoFundMe. But I think very well this website can handle the fund management. But there are some basic things we need to do before we go there. Like Chok mentioned, like we need to register it in US as well as in India as a non-profits, and then file certain documents to the government and get 80G FCRA in India as well as in US. Then we will be able to handle all the funds directly. That's going to be a beauty of this, so you can see everything at one place. The last one I will be covering, finishing this presentation, is the upcoming event section. This is where you can post upcoming events. There is so much we can do here. Like it's simply like let's say a career excellence program for 2020 or 2021, and then there is going to be a payment link or the information link or the agenda link. Everything will be discussed in this upcoming events. There can be any interesting events that any user can share, upcoming lead acid battery conference, etc. or a particular schedule of what's going to happen where. All of this can be discussed in the upcoming events, and anyone can comment on this. And then, speaking about fundraiser, we will have both internal and external fundraiser campaign page. Internal will have links to make the payment, and the collected funds goes through the alumni business account, which will be accomplished later part of this website development. Externally, the collected funds will be routed to the alumni business account as well in a different way. So that's how this website is imagined. In a simple words, I can say this is, like I mentioned before, it's a dream come true for all of us. We can use all of our power at one place to achieve many great causes, and get well connected through each and everyone who comes under the Sikri BTech program. Mohan, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to add one point that
Yeah.
for the present batch students who are studying in Sikri, so we are also planning to have one single login ID, either through placement cell or alumni, so that they. So that is the idea for having a connection between present batch and alumni.
Yeah, yeah. These are some of the ideas initially we have. Chok, this is pretty much about it, and
Great.
I'm sure there is so much more to it. This is just the initial talk. We want to give it to the greater audience, basically.
Yeah, I think within a week, the team had done an excellent job in putting the framework together and coming up to this stage. So really, thank you, Sharif. Thank you, Mohan. Very nice to see this. What this also enables us is to be transparent, right? All the accounts will be there in the website. The transparency is the key. I think the moment the transparency is there, there's so much potential that we can get things done. So with that, I'll go to Ashish. Where are you, Ashish?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
So the main questions are regarding COVID-19 for Dindi. One specific question, one specific question asked by Rahul is: should the Indian government take care of the employee salaries for the month of April and May? Can this help MSME?
I mean, I thought it's pretty much a no-brainer. I think you should put money into people's hands. Yes, it's going to increase our deficit and things like that, but let's worry about that later on. But I don't think that's something which is happening, right? So that's where things stand. Of course, it's very funny, especially see there are a couple of MSME owners, right? And even in your batch, we have, for example, Casey who runs his factory, right? So it's a very funny position for them. The government is telling them, don't cut salaries for your employees, don't lay them off, things like that. But they are they are going to be facing the problem that customers have already started canceling their orders, or they say, we can't make payment. So it's a pretty funny situation where the government is advising these entrepreneurs, like, don't cut pay, don't, right? So realistically, even an entrepreneur, yeah, you could possibly pay for a month, you could possibly pay for 2 months, but how is he going to continue being in business and paying people, right? So I don't know. Wishful thinking is, yes, obviously you would want the government. The wishful thinking is we have some sort of a social security system in place. I mean, you're seeing that in US. I mean, how much ever you might not like Trump, I don't like him for his view. The fact is he's delivered. He's doing a fabulous job. He went about putting money into people's hands. Yes, you will have complaints on him. He talks nonsense, all that, but that's happened. He has gone ahead and put, at least that's a perception. You people in the US, correct me if I'm wrong. He has gone out and gives SMBs money. It happened in Germany. It happened in Canada. Canada is again a great example. So across these places, it has happened, right? Of course, India is a much large country. I mean, we are a continent, right? If you take each of our states, they are Tamil Nadu, you can compare it with population. I know South Korea, Iran, Maharashtra would be Brazil, Madhya Pradesh would be, so we are a huge country, but we need to figure out, right? And I think we must use this. This was something which was said by Abhijit Banerjee also. There's an adversity we must, sorry, this is by other guy. Right? There's an adversity, and we must at least think, we must at least plan, whether things like a social security net can be put in place. Something like I have been playing, I mean, there's TDS. I mean, I'm assuming for most people over here who are working, we do get our tax deducted at source, right? So if there's going to be a time where we're going to lose a job, right? All we're saying is a portion of what I have paid in the past as tax deducted from my source, the government gives back to me, right? Something as this wishful thinking. I'm not saying no, but at least these are things which you must start thinking about. That's my take on this. I know it's not easy. It's easy to sit and talk, but this is wishful thinking at least, and at least we must work towards that. That's my take.
Got it. There is another question from Madan. Does COVID question the globalization, capitalism, and a push towards self-reliance?
So this is something which I think there can be no greater example of globalization than the virus itself, right? So the virus itself is an example of globalization. It came from China, and it traveled across the whole world, and it came here, right? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't. I'm hearing everybody say that. We are hearing the Prime Minister saying self-reliance, but I really do not know whether it's going to be that way. I mean, David Ricardo is a guy who in 1817 came out with his theory on comparative advantage of nations, right? So he says, what is your competency? You concentrate on that, and you produce based on your competency, and you trade, and you allow trade to flow freely without tariffs and barriers and things like that, and everybody is going to be a net gainer. So I personally don't think so. I have also been hearing a lot of my friends, my SFI friends, my left friends have saying that's it, that's the end of globalization and things like that. I don't know. I don't think so. We can't do the whole vaccine, which is happening right now, is a solidarity trial. You're having all the countries get together so that they could accelerate and get the vaccine fast. In an isolationist world, that's not going to be, that wouldn't have happened. I actually think we'd have more globalization than less.
Okay, okay. This is a more generalized question by Ramanathan sir. Could you please comment on the potential confusion between COVID and other illnesses such as flu? A lot of conspiracy theories going around.
So it's not conspiracy theory, but I should not scare you guys. So in India, we are not very transparent with our data. We had something called the NCDC, which is National Center for Communication Disease. It's based out of Kunur and Chennai. It was like how you have CDC in the US, you have this NCDC in India. But surprisingly, when COVID broke out, these guys were never got into the whole thing. These are the people who from 2004 have been prepared to take and do this as a job. But suddenly it was the ICMR which started doing that. And bizarrely, on the flu data, they used to regularly update data for flu. So if you go to the website, NCDC, you'll see that from the 24th of February, data for flu has not been updated, right? So there have been what they call as SARI cases. We were not prepared. I think we were just not prepared for something like this. That's also got to do with the fact that as humans, we cannot visualize the e power x curve or the exponential curve. We are used to thinking linearly, right? If it was 10 days, if it was 20 cases, 20 days, it should be 40 cases, right? Our human brain cannot see the e power x curve. And we just, even now we can't, even though we talk this way, we can't accept it. But when we see the number on the screen jumping that way, you might remember your NJ Ranganathan teaching this in numerical analysis, but you're seeing it actually happening there. You're seeing e power x curve right in front of you. And it's very tough to imagine that, right? So this is called exponential growth bias. You could Google around the EGB or the exponential.
Okay. Another question by Ashwin is what is hindering the government to increase the testing in India in terms of manpower, test kits? why are they still trying to approach of backtracking to the alpha person at this phase?
But I think he means the primary contact.
The first person, yes.
The answer is I don't know. I've actually been trying to find out answers from various people, even in my job. I've been trying to speak to a bunch of people in health. Nobody's willing to go on record, but they're willing to speak off record. Uh, Nobody, see, even in March, we are talking of things like Trumpian level of all this is a hoax. Summer heat, we have special immunities in India. Summer heat is going to kill the virus, and all these sorts of things were discussed. And people like, at least a few of us were watching it with horror, the whole thing unfold. So right in May 7th, I will not forget this one last thing I must say. So May 7th, I go about posting this saying EPARX and things like that. A friend of mine, a classmate of mine calls me from Seattle and says, Dindy, you got paranoid, you better go and take up counseling. And I was like, what the hell? Exactly a week later, he called up and he apologized because that's when shit was hitting fan at Seattle. So people had a tendency to underestimate this whole thing. And that was because as humans, we cannot visualize the e power x curve naturally. It doesn't come to us naturally. So I think that is the problem. But that's it. I think corrective measures are being made in testing. We should be testing far more. There's no argument at all. The initial approach I would think was if you test more, you're going to report more cases, and that's going to make you look bad. We had that thing even in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu changed around 29th or 30th when they got a new nodal officer kind for COVID. And I think they are now being testing pretty aggressively. Although today it's come down, they are testing about 15,000, 20. Their aim is to test 1% of population, which would be about 7 lakhs. And once you have that data, you would have better idea of zero prevalence and things like that. And we hope things will work out.
Another question by Sekapan is, will this COVID be a turning point for India, proving APJ's India 2020 trigger point as the world looks for manufacturing hub alternative to China?
I hope so. That's all I can say. I really hope. I do believe that in every adversity, there could be an opportunity. This example of PPE, which is being played too big by the dispensation, but that's a fact. Right inside, instead of we looking at our own Tirupur and our own Surat clusters to make these PPEs and masks and things like that, we were going about looking around. But over the last few weeks, at least they have ramped up. But again, if you look again at Sundar's estimate on his model, the extent to which we have ramped up on this is not going to match the requirement that we would have probably 4 weeks, even 4 weeks from now. But nevertheless, I think we are looking at this. I really hope. I'm hoping that this is a turning point for us, and we all come together first and foremost as a community. We are going to keep having differences. We are going to have political differences, way in which we look at things, North India, South India, language, Tamil, Hindi, right up to difference of caste and creed and race and things like that. But I think this is an opportunity for us all to get together, right? And we must realize that we are all in this together, and I hope that really happens.
Yeah, so there's no your side of our boat, so it cannot be a whole side of our boat. Yeah. Okay, so with that, I think we are 6 minutes. Maybe this is a time for all of us to turn the video on and say hi and other things. So just an interaction. So rather than just a one way, I think people were trying to see each other because meeting after a long time. So who is ready to turn on and
Nattu there.
yeah.
I'm going to stop recording, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ashok.